Hello everybody and welcome to Wesley's Plant World with me, Wesley Peterson, and today I am out in the area of my garden called Southside Sunny Garden, and I have already completed 2 videos on creating this area of my garden. Video part 1, video part 2, and this is now video part 3, where I will be concentrating on my border in front of me here. I want to try and dig out a little wildlife pond in this area because it would be fabulous with these rocks behind it and then a little pond and then plants around. It will be perfect for the wildlife, and it's a perfect spot to have a pond. We have the southern exposure here with the sun, the canopy of all of the trees around here, and all of the rest of the bushes and trees around in the area. And that's perfect because that means that this pond can get some direct sunlight and then mostly dappled light and a shady situation. So it will fluctuate, giving a perfect ambience for the pond and the wildlife that will be using the pond. So this is a groundbreaking day. I'm just going to get my spade out and dig and see how far I can go. I'm really not sure if this is going to work at all. There could be a lot of huge tree roots and rocks and boulders under the ground that I just can't penetrate down into. And if that's the case, then I'm going to switch it up and I will build upwards with soil and put a water tray in the middle and do a different kind of planting instead. But my hope is to make a pond, so that is what I'm going to start with. So let me get on with the digging. So I've just collected all my different tools that I might need for this excavation here, and I'll keep them in this bucket next to me and get my gardening gloves on, because you can't do this kind of thing without gardening gloves. Otherwise it gets quite rough on the hands. So it's nice to protect them while you work. Right, let's get the first dig into action and see what it feels like. There's something, oh no, I'm getting quite deep here already. That's a good start. Very soft, beautiful soil, which I can place around the edges as I go along, which is fantastic. Very rich soil. Now you can hear there are some rocks, and if they're smaller rocks, it's good because I'll be able to excavate them up and out of the hole. And of course, any big tree roots I will cut over out of the way. The trees will survive. They've got plenty of other roots and they adapt and grow out again anyway. But right now, this seems to be working pretty easily. I'm quite surprised, actually. I hope it stays this way for me. Let's see. Such beautiful soil at the same time. I just love it. It's also going to save me having to buy lots and lots of soil to fill up the edge of the area. It's actually going really well and really easy. I have a couple of big roots, and that was of course inevitable, but they're not too bad, and I can just get my loppers and start excavating some of those out as well at the same time and throw them over to my other border over there. There's a big root here from something that I want to chop over and get out of my way. See? Easy. Out. So what I found is I've hit a hard bottom here, so I can't get much further down. You can hear it. And that's fine. I think I'm just going to get myself my plastic container and put it in here, and I have so much of this soil to just place around the edge, and that will be enough to make a little wildlife pond. Found some old netting for some plant or something that hasn't biodegraded. I was going to just put my plastic container in here, but seeing as it's quite deep and it feels like it's quite soft at the side still, I still think I can make it a bigger pond. And it would be better to do that with a liner. And, you know, building up the sides as well will make it deep enough so that it's around about 60 centimeters deep so that it doesn't freeze all the way through during the winter time as well. But I have hit the bottom down here for sure. I can't go any deeper. These rocks down here are very big. I wonder how much I can go to the side though. That's what I'm thinking, to make it a bigger pond. I think I need to discover how big I can actually make this pond and make it as big as possible. So get the soil until, well, here I know that I reach the edge of the rock and that goes way down. That's a big rock. So I just need to keep lifting this soil out of the center here for now. So I must say, this has gone really, really well, much better than I thought it would. And I've got quite a deep hole here that I can get into. And I think I've done enough. It's a decent size pond, and I'm actually going to measure the edges to see how wide I've made it. So if I measure these edges, the actual pond inside is 1.35 meters by 1.90 meters across, and let's see how deep it is. So if we should say, yeah, this side will be the deepest, so that's not so deep. It's around 30 centimeters on one side. But I will build that up because I need this to be at least 60 centimeters. And here, it's if I build up those sides there, then it will be 50-60 centimeter. On this side, same thing. This pond is probably going to be around 40-50 centimeters deep, and that's quite okay. It needs to be at least 60 to stop it freezing. So I can't get much deeper than this. So the only way for me to be able to do it is to try and build up the sides with soil and rock before I end up putting the liner in here. But I'm going to bring you in for a closer look so you can see what the hole looks like, because I haven't got any liner or anything right now. So this is going to be a project that I will finish at a later point. But we can have a look at the expanse of my pond, because I'm just so pleased how easy it was to get in and actually dig down into this hole. So I just want to harden the bottom just so you can see the expanse of how it will be inside, and then we can have a look. So here we go to get an idea of what the pond will look like when it's completed later on. Here we go. I've excavated the hole and you can see it's going to be quite a nice sized pond. I washed off the rock behind because I just think it's so beautiful, and then found that the water collected in the bottom and sealed. So it's managed to turn into a little pond of its own right without any liner. But I know that this will not last, and this will fade away quite rapidly as the weather gets hotter, so it won't work without a liner. But for now, it's giving the idea of exactly what I wanted in the garden. So here you can see the pond and the bench in the far corner. That's absolutely fantastic. I'm really going to enjoy having a completed pond here in the middle of the garden. This is the perspective around the pond, further back. And you can see right up to the other side of Southside Sunny Garden, and where we have our sunbed. And now I'm going to go right back to the bench and sit on the bench. And from here you can't see into the pond, But when you stand up, you can, but it will depend how deep I can get the pond to be. But look at this. It's just going to be nice to be able to walk around and see the pond and the reflection of light, as you can see here right now, down in that deeper hole. We'll go around the back. And this is the back side. From the furthest back corner in Southside Sunny Garden, this is the perspective to where the pond is. Now I'm really excited to go and get the liner and complete my wildlife pond project, because this looks amazing. And a really good size for here. I am so pleased that it went so quickly and so well and so easily to map out the area of my pond here. It's just fantastic. And I can't wait to go and get the pond liner now and get that sorted out, as well as the edging, and fill it up with water, get lots of lovely rocks to place around the edge and the plants that I want to place around here as well. And then the excitement will be when the wildlife makes it into the pond. Oh, that is going to be fantastic. But look how wonderful this is. And with me here, you can see the perspective of the size of these beautiful rocks on the side and how big the actual expanse is going to be in the middle. So right now, it's the very next day, April the 23rd, 2025, and I've been out and bought my pond liner ready to go. But we've decided we want the pond to be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to try and extend it as far as I can out to the rock in front and further back on the border on this side to make it as long as possible, and then just a little bit more out to the side as far as I can go. I can see there are big roots there, but my liner is 12 meters long by 2 meters wide. So I can't go too wide. I can go a little bit wider, but the pond isn't that deep, so I should be able to do this fine. So the first thing I need to get on with today is moving the soil out from the sides even further and building out a little bit more, and then I'm ready to go and get some different things that I have lying around to line underneath my pond liner. I have some insulation fibre, and then I have plastic that I can just put around underneath, and then I'll put my pond liner on top. So I better just get on with this. So I finally finished digging out my pond as far down as I can go, and right in the middle there are a couple of big rocks, and I've managed to excavate a little bit around them to be able to get even deeper. So there will be pockets with deeper areas. Then there's a little ledge on the inside, and then I'll have the upper side as well. So I just want to measure how deep it seems that this pond is going to get right to the deepest part, because it seems quite deep now. So if I do it up to where the top ledge looks like it is, then the deepest part is actually below 60 centimeters, around 65 centimeters deep. So that's really good. That means there'll be some pockets in the pond that won't freeze, which means wildlife will be able to live in the pond all year round. So now I've got some insulating fibre that I want to put at the bottom around the rock and in the holes, to make sure that there's no sharp edges from the rocks that are going to perforate the pond liner in the end. That wouldn't be very good. But on top of that, I will be putting a layer of plastic that I have, and then the pond liner, and then it should have plenty enough protection from underneath to support the weight of the water when it comes in. So I've got my first pieces of insulating fibre here, and this is going to be fantastic as well, because it's actually going to hold the temperature up in the water at the bottom, so that it never gets too cold actually. So here we go. First piece, I'll get more. I'm just going to stuff this in, really pack it in. because I've had this in my cellar for 9.5 years, and it was there from when the previous owners built this cottage way back in 2011. So it's about time I use some of this fibre for something useful like this. So with all this, I think I'm going to have one happy pond. That's for sure. Actually think I'm going to line my edging up here with it just a little bit. So I'm happy with this as it is. And now I'm going to get my plastic to put in. So I have my plastic here, and I'm going to go over the top and place this plastic in the hole. Let it fall around all over. And try and get myself in so I can get the plastic all over the bottom of the pond. In the deepest areas, of course, mostly, where the rock is. More plastic in the middle just to protect it. So right, the plastic's on top. Now I'm ready to go and get my pond liner, which I'm going to have to place in a little bit more carefully than I've done with this, but we'll see how it goes. So here I am with my pond liner, and this is 6 times 12 meters. So I have enough for this pond and another project later on, I hope. That's the whole plan. So now I need to figure out, let's have a little look. Yeah, that is the right way, it doesn't matter. Got to try and pull this over and in there. I don't want to get all the soil in here as well. And I really am no expert at this. So it's all fun and games for me. That's for sure. As long as it goes right. But it's so much fun. This is the first time ever I've created a pond like this with a liner by myself. So I am excited, I really am. Now, I've got to get in, and I hope I just don't damage the lining when I'm trying to find my ledges, my holes, you know, where it needs to go deeper down. I'm going to gently pressure into the pond. The deepest part is here, I can feel it already. Sand, dirt in my face. It's going all around here, going up to that ledge, and managing to get up to that ledge. Okay. Let's see. Just kicking it down into the gaps before the actual water will come in and do the rest of the work for me anyway. So I look like I've got plenty enough liner around the edges so that I will be able to trim back and then hide that liner under the soil that I'm going to be putting back down over the edges, and of course rocks. Or should I say, I actually need to put rocks in on those edges to hold the liner in place. But first, I suppose I need to fill up some water so that the liner can actually be pulled down into all the areas that it needs to be. Yes, that's the first thing to do. So here we go. The fun part, filling up the pond. And I'm going to have to leave it to it, I suppose, for a while. The good thing about the liner having lots of crevices and things like that, it's going to make it feel like it's cliff sides in the pond where lots of animals, smaller animals, and the microbiodiversity and all sorts and plants will be able to hide into or latch onto and carry on surviving like that. I am so excited about this right now. The first time ever creating a pond by digging out the hole myself, making a little ledge, putting in the protective layers underneath, and now the pond liner on top, filling up with water and hoping this is going to work out. After all this, because this is just so exciting. I am so excited. This is the first time having a proper sized pond in my garden that will hold water. We have our little heart pond in the wild orchard garden that fills up naturally itself every winter season, but the water sinks and fades away. But then I have water loving plants that like the situation, and I'm going to use that as a bog garden and planting some more different things that flower and so forth. So that's my idea over there, a natural bog garden. But now I'll have a body of water that is going to be quite big with quite a large surface circumference that's going to be perfect for the wildlife here. I just love the sound of the water as it fills up. And I love the shape of it. It looks so natural. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm so excited. It's even like watching a little waterfall. Oh, this is amazing. I'm going to really enjoy sitting here later when I've finished all of this off. So I've nearly finished filling up my pond now, and you can see it has quite a nice sized surface area. And I can see the depth down in the middle, the different layers, and the ledge that I made around some of the edging. And it slopes more up, shallower towards this end. So it should be possible for animals that could maybe fall in here, small animals, to be able to get out. But as I said, I'm going to be putting some rocks around that inner ledge inside there to make hiding spaces for all the animals, for plants to be able to grow and so forth, and then building up the edges. But right now I am just loving the size and expanse of the pond, and the liner was absolutely perfect. So once I get to the highest point, when I see the water starts trickling over one of the sides, which is probably going to be this backside here, then I'll know I've reached the maximum level. And I'm going to be really excited in the end to see how deep the deepest part is now. This is just fabulous. I'm just so excited. Wow. So there we have it. Now we can see just how wide and beautiful my new wildlife pond looks. And I've reached the max point of the lining on the left side. So now what I want to do is just go and cut the excess lining off the back part of the pond, because that's where I have many meters left to do another project. And then I need to sort out the edges, which means rocks and soil on top of the lining to make it look as natural as possible. And it will, when I've planted in plants around the edge that can climb over and so forth and thicken out, then it will look amazing. And well, now I just need to decide what I want to do with the edging to disguise it. I think that side's going to be the easiest side for me to sort out. And I have plenty of extra soil to put back around on the edges. So all I'm going to do now is go and find me some rocks and sort out the areas that I can most easily sort out for now. I want to first start by gently placing some rocks in the water here where I have a nice ledging, because that is going to be where a lot of animals will be climbing in and out. But before I put the rocks, I'm going to put a layer of soil, because it's also going to be somewhere where plants are going to grow. And I want to protect the lining from any rough parts on the rocks. All natural ponds have soil in them, right? So there's no problem with me placing some of this in along the edge here. In fact, it's just going to be brilliant for the biodiversity. I actually have an aquarium in my apartment where I placed soil in the bottom of my aquarium and then a layer of sand to keep it in place, and it worked out fantastically. So this will all settle down and clear out, and that is why you need soil and plants to keep the nitrogen cycle going. But we've got to start with something. So the soil, and then rocks. We have so many local lakes here, so I will go out to the lakes and I will go and collect water and a little bit of the local plant life and whatever insects and snails and all sorts of other creatures will be in that water and place them in here, and that will start off the pond life and the cycle straight away. It might seem counterintuitive to be doing this, and it will stay cloudy for a while until the soil settles. All the scummy bits on the top I can go and collect after with a net, so that's no problem. But well, now it's cloudy, it's hard for me to see where my shelving is, but I can kind of guess. So I'm going to get these rocks and place them in. I can feel it anyway, just like that. This side of the pond is higher than that side, so I can take some of this soil out, put this plastic lining in under, and then put the soil back on top here. So that's what I'm going to do now. Now I don't want to cut the liner because if possible, and the water does go over the edge, that's good. It will become a kind of little bog area or an area where there'll be plants and they'll get water coming in to them. So that's perfect. Already you can see this part of the border is starting to look more natural. Really, really nice. So it's going to be nice when there are some small rocks around on top to carry it on. Need to do the same around the back side here. Get this side sorted. So just push it forward a bit. That's starting to work. Perfect. Now this rock could be separated, so I'll have a big piece that I could actually put there. That would be great. So now I have this side to work on. This side has to stay up because otherwise the water's all going to run out this way. So it does need to be built up with soil underneath, and then I'm going to have to put a wall of rocks around here to keep it built up. Actually, I'm going to do that first. Fill this side with soil. This back part here against the rock, I just want to fold it in a little bit so it's not so high up, and here I can place in some soil so that some plants grow in here anyway. So now I just need to get myself some more rocks, but you can see the pond is coming more and more together. It looks great. So now I just want to rake up some of this dirt as much as possible along this edge so I can move some big rocks in here, get rid of some of these old roots here at the same time that are in my way. Don't need those here, but I want all this good soil for planting, of course. To build up the edge. Now we still have our pathway around here, so of course I don't want the edging of the pond to be too wide or anything like that. That's why I need to rake up, get everything back on the edge here so we can see the divide between the edge of the pond and the pathway. Coming along here. Starting to come more and more and more and more together. And so quickly, I think, at least. Maybe not. Now I want to see if I can try and move this big rock on my own, because if I can and place that there, that will cover that side of this. Oh, no, that would actually change the whole shape of the pond. I'm going to have to be patient and get help to get some more bigger rocks going on around the edge of this pond here, because I can't do everything myself. It's just way too much hard work, but I'm really pleased with how far I've come. I feel like I can halve the edge of soil on here, put the liner inside and then push up the soil again before I get rocks to go around. So that's something I need to do here. It's a bit too wide with the liner over the top, so that the path has become very thin, and then it's going to be difficult to get rocks here as well. Well, you know what? Once again, the battery on my camera ran out and I don't have a spare. So every time the battery runs out, I have to go in and let it charge up. But I have so much to do so that I don't want to waste time waiting for the battery because it takes ages to charge up anyway. So I managed to carry on out here, piled up the soil around the edge of my new pond and placed out a ring of rocks. And it was a lot of hard work and they're very heavy. And I'm home alone, so I did it all on my own, and I am really, really tired now for the day. So I am done with this project for today. I just want to take you in for a closer look so you can see how far I've managed to get done in part 3 of creating my Southside sunny garden area. All of a sudden, it has a pond. And I just had a bee fly past me, drinking the nectar of this flowering currant next to me here that are still doing absolutely fabulous, even though they've been planted with no roots whatsoever. They're just cuttings in the ground. So anyway, let me take you in for a closer look so I can explain a little bit more and show you a little bit more of how much I've managed to do here with my lovely new little pond that is going to have a name at some point as well. Let's go. So let's go and have a look at my halfway finished wildlife pond with a rock border and the outline of a plant border here on the right hand side of it, where there's already a tree coming up that I'll keep pruned miniature, and then fill up this area with soil and plant out plants, and of course fill out around the edge of the stone border around the pond, inside and outside, with plants. But look at this. It looks fabulous. All of the rocks around the edge here, and then I have this hazelnut bush here that I'll keep pruned so it doesn't get too tall, but perfectly positioned on the side of the pond. You can see the pathway out to Cozy Cove over there. Look at the silhouette of the sky already. Just beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to filling in these sides with soil and plants so you can't see the lining as much as now. If I go up to the bench and then turn around, we can see what the view looks like. So when I sit here, there's the sunbed, there is the pond, and there you can see our annex and Crystal Cottage. Absolutely fantastic, with the stone border and those big boulders that were already there as the main outline. This is going to fill in amazingly, so much so that you won't be able to see the liner when ground growing plants shroud the pond. And I'm going to be planting in lots of Vinca minor because I have it growing around and about in my garden naturally, and it's evergreen, and that would be fantastic to have growing around here. And it gets purple flowers, and it will give a thick mass of evergreen coverage all the way around, in between, over and under the rocks, and it will look so natural in the end. So round the back, and the view from the sunbed, there you go. You can still see the pond when sitting here in the sunbed or whatever other furniture we decide to put here. Look at the beautiful big boulder on the side with the quartz crystal streak in it. Stone boulder. I'll fill out again, as I said, with soil and so forth. These are plant borders on the side so that it becomes a green oasis inside for the biodiversity. But look at this. I am so pleased with this. I'm not worried it's brown now. It's my own fault for putting soil in there. But once I fill it up with plants and creatures from the lakes around and about, it will clear out as all the biodiversity starts working together. So you can see there's a huge gap here to fill up with soil, but I have this tree coming up here that's going to look lovely already this summer. So I really hope you enjoyed seeing the close-up of my pond now midway, and I will carry on with this job tomorrow. Well, can you see me behind my lovely big bush there in the foreground? I went ahead and carried on with a lot of the planting in and around my lovely new pond here, and I'm really excited about how this is coming on. Now, it's actually the next day and the weather here has got pretty cold, so I'm all wrapped up to keep myself warm, but I have a lot more to do today. But before I get on with that, I want to take you in for a closer look to show you the next phase of creating my pond. And we'll see some of the different varieties of plants that I have going on in here as they are now. And just remember that these will mature more and more, fill out more and more, and with time, hopefully, I'll be able to disguise most of the liner that is around the pond. So for now, we just have to accept that we can see the black liner here and there, but it will get better with time. This is still only the very early phases of making this pond, and it's still only April. So during the summer, everything should be able to grow in and around the pond much quicker and fill out. So yes, let's go in for that closer look so I can get on with doing some more planting that I need to get done today. So once again, let's start by walking through the back part of Cozy Cove and then down into Southside Sunny Garden. And here is how the pond is coming along. Now the big bush at the front here is an Amelanchier that has beautiful white flowers on it, and its lovely green leaves coming out, and this would turn lovely tones of copper, orange and reds during the autumn time. In front of that, I've placed out Spirea betulifolia to protect the Amelanchier, because otherwise the deer could come in and try and browse on the stems of the Amelanchier. They do that, but they don't touch Spirea. So this can grow up and around as a companion plant to protect it. Underneath at the bottom, I've planted out some Carex moroi grass, which is also evergreen. These plants will grow up and mound out and fill out the area beautifully. And that's together with the Vinca minor. Here along the edge, you can see where I've planted out the Vinca minor, and I placed out some kind of tiling underneath this beautiful matte carpet. Then in the water, you can see this yellow flowering plant. This is marsh marigold, and they love to keep their roots moist. So they grow in ditches and streams and on the edges of riverbanks, and they grow wildly where I live. So they are perfect around the edge of the pond. In the middle over here, you can see some moss and Polypodium vulgaris fern that will grow out. The edging here with the Vinca minor, and then down between the rocks, the Pilosetta aranciata that will come up with their orange flowers later on. So beautiful. Now the sun has decided to shine a little bit, and you can see how wonderful the pond's looking. In the actual pond itself, there are so many different species of plants, but we'll have to get into that in another video later on. But look how wonderful it's looking right now. This is before all the plants have established themselves and righted themselves up. There are many different species of plants in here now already, filtering out and starting the nitrogen cycle so perfectly. Look at this view around the pond. So if I stand up here, you can see more of what's going on around the edge and the rocks. Planting. There's a Carula avellana that was here already. which is another perfect plant on the edge. And it's perfect because it has all these branches hanging over the water, which will be perfect perches for birds and dragonflies, damselflies and so forth, that like to sit out and look over the edge of water and hunt by the water's edge. More lichens on the rocks here. More Carex morowii and Vinca minor here. Then you can see the Rebus sanguineum behind the rocks here, with their pink flowers contrasting against the Caltha palustris, the marsh marigold. And this is the view from my bench so far. You can see our annex and Crystal Cottage in the background. Sunbed on the left and the beautiful pond in the middle of Southside Sunny Garden now. This is just going to come on a treat with time. Look at this beautiful view. So on the back side of the pond you can see the marsh marigold, the Carex sedgegrass, the fox and cubs, the myrtle, and here I created a lot more holes under these tiling, under the lichen here, and in front this little border that is full of Bergenia cordifolia eroica. You can see the flowers here, purple flowers that contrast beautifully against the marsh marigold. But in amongst these Bergenia, I've also planted out some ferns that will come up later on, and there are ferns behind this aspen tree trunk, Populus tremula. On the left side there will be a fern that comes up there. So this will be a mixture of all sorts of plants. Down in front of the rocks I've placed out some of the fox and cubs to fill out the area. There we go, the view is absolutely beautiful already. Here you can see the spirea again. And the Hegmispor, because I've moved it from another area of my garden and had to cut its main roots, it's wilting a little bit, but it will be absolutely fine once it's established. These are all the rocks and the view over the pond right now. So there we have our bench, border number 4 behind that, border number 3 in front of us here, border number 2, which has now become the pond with planted borders around. Behind that, the log you can see over in the corner, I'm going to make into border number 5 actually. So I'll get that done in another video. Make sure you check out that too. And then border number 1 here. And our views. And our pond with our Crystal Cottage in the distance. Amazing. This has just worked out so well. So I really hope you like seeing the close-up of my planting so far. But remember, this is nowhere near finished, okay? And it's still only late spring, so none of the trees and deciduous plants have really got many leaves on them yet, and the main growth hasn't started happening. So this is just all to get this pond going. So now, I just want to get on with a little bit more of the planting I need to do around the edge of this pond, because I really just want to pack it in as much as possible to get that effect I'm looking for, even though I know it's going to take more time before everything starts growing in. And then I'll take you in for a closer look. So the first plant that I want to start planting more of around my pond is this beautiful lesser periwinkle or myrtle. And I have lots of this growing around the perimeter of my grounds, and you can see it gets full of lovely purple flowers all over at this time of year, April, but also the rest of the year it gets sporadical flowering. This is evergreen, so it's going to be perfect to surround and cover the perimeter and all of the rest of the areas where there's soil around my pond, so that during the winter months there'll still be a green outlining. I really want that. And this really grows very quickly and it creeps very quickly. It has lots of roots all over. So it's also known as creeping myrtle. So it's absolutely perfect and it grows very fast. So let me get this into the soil. To do this, I'm going to have myself a little stool so that I don't have to hurt my legs as I work. And this requires really no fuss. I just grab bundles and put them straight into the soil where I excavate a hole. Doesn't matter if any of the roots are still exposed. The plant will utilize whatever is under the soil, and the rest will dry out and disappear, but the plant grows quickly, as I said, so it's no problem. The longer pieces I will put in between the rocks so they have a chance to grow out there. So now I think I've got enough of this Vinca minor around my pond. Now there's another kind of plant I want to go and collect to plot in around and about that I know will spread as well, but also a plant that gets flowers a little bit later on during the summer months. And they will be fantastic here creeping around as well. Now I have my next creeping plant that I want to plant out around here. And this is a fantastic plant as well. Very robust, very capable. This is Pilosetta aurantiaca, fox and cubs. There you go, a lovely perennial plant. And these can stay small and low grown to the ground if they are in conditions where there's not many nutrients, but if there are a lot of nutrients, then they can grow into quite big plants and taller. But during the summer, the amazing thing with these plants is they get the most amazing tall stalks with orange flowers, and the insects love it. It's fantastic for biodiversity, and it creeps along the ground on its rhizomes just the same as the lesser periwinkle, and it will find its way around the pond as well and give another flowering after the lesser periwinkle are finished with their flowering. During the summer, we'll get these flower stalks that can get to around 40 centimeters tall or more, and they are just beautiful. So let me get this in around the edge of my pond as well now. This is a plant that prefers more sunny situations, whereas the lesser periwinkle, the myrtle, copes with shadier situations, so it's around the back of the pond. I'll be putting this around the top of the back of the pond here where the sun will come in. This is south anyway. And also around the back side of the pond as well. All sorts of places, and it will just be allowed to grow wild around and about. I'm putting as much as possible as I can around this pond, and then these plants will be left to fight it out between them to see which crevices they'll take off in best and take over that area while others take over other areas. I want it to be wild. So that was a little bit more of my planting done. So now I am ready to take you in for a closer look around the pond so you can see how it's coming along right now. And at the same time, I'm going to figure out what kind of plants I can get that I can place in behind the areas where the plastic lining is showing out so much. There, I want to put a little pocket of soil and then plant some plants out that will hang over the edge and creep along, filling out the edging so that the liner disappears more and more. But anyway, let's go in and have a closer look at this pond during the early phases of its development. So I really hope you enjoyed seeing my planting construction around the edge and how it's coming along now. The next thing I want to do today is I want to get a few more rocks to place along the edge, this edging here inside the pond, because I have a lot of plants that are floating around that need to have an edge where they can stabilize themselves and right themselves up. If they all slip into the deeper part of the pond, they will actually drown because they need an area with shallower water and substrate that starts building up to anchor themselves. And then the plants that have the longer roots and bigger leaves, well, they can stretch out roots themselves and they'll be able to float around and right themselves up. But these smaller plants, they do need some help. So I'm going to go and get myself some rocks now and place on the inner edge of the pond. So my next piece of rock that I'm going to try and place in here is this one. And I want to kind of just place it on top of the plants and their roots, and the plants just figure it out themselves. So now I've finished adding a few more rocks on the inner side of my pond here where I have a ledge, and this will help to stabilize these aquatic plants that I've just planted in and give them somewhere to anchor their roots and so forth, and we'll see how they grow out in here along the edge. The larger pieces and all the other pieces that are floating around in the middle will just be left like that, and we'll see what rights itself up and grows out. Some of those have bigger leaves, so they're going to be absolutely fantastic floating there in the middle. At some point, I would like to get some lotus to put in here because lotus are fantastic, and with their leaves, they give the creatures a surface on the water to sit on the leaves, small frogs and so forth, dragonflies. But this is how far I've got so far. There's a long, long way to go, but already the pond looks quite established, I think. So I'm really looking forward to, in a couple of months' time, seeing how it's all merged together. The actual water itself seems like it's got a little bit clearer since I've added so many plants. So that's good. And hopefully it will clear up more and more. I will just keep filling it with plants until it becomes clear. Then I know that I've got a balance that works. The plants are going to have to work really, really hard to siphon out and filter the water. I've already seen 3 or 4 water skaters on the surface of the pond. That makes me really excited. That means that the wildlife have already started to find their way towards the pond. And of course, around the edges, there are lots of ants, and I've seen spiders and woodlice and all sorts of other things which you would expect. And they have perfect habitats to live under these rocks, which will remain moist, either with the lining underneath or with soil and soiler lining. So that will keep a perfectly moist habitat for all of those creatures. Things like amphibians or birds, or even snakes would like to come and enjoy as a snack. We have a lot of grass snakes here, and we have a lot of common adders. So there will probably be some of those hiding around, making a home, or at least visiting the pond here quite a lot when the amphibians arrive mostly. So I am not an expert at making a pond. Let's get that quite clear. So anyone who's a pond expert out there, or who has created a pond in a much more professional manner, well, this is my first ever try at creating a pond like this with a liner. There are a few mistakes I've made that you should think about if you're going to do this for the first time yourself and you don't want to go through what I'm going through. There is a debate of whether you should put the soil or the ground that you take up from the hole that you dig out of your pond and place it back in the pond on top of the liner, because, well, that gives a substrate for the plant life and the microbiodiversity, as well as the other creatures that will be living in the pond. And I took this soil that I have here and placed it back in the pond on the ledges. But this is a very, very rich soil here. You can see it's very dark brown. It's very much like compost. So it's probably very acidic. And I've put that back in the pond. And of course, that made the pond murky straight away, and there were a lot of organic debris floating around on the top that I had to go and get a net and to take away. So that's in the pond, but I'm like, well, these kind of things would end up in the pond anyway, but I decided to do that anyway. And the second thing is, should you put rocks on top of your liner? You could risk getting holes in the liner, but as I've basically only put them up on the top edge here, and the pond does go pretty deep now, in the deepest parts in there. It's probably around 50 centimeters or so, maybe more, in the very deep parts. So if the water should sink, it will still be a pond, but it will be smaller, but that would also mean that there's a lot more of the liner exposed, which wouldn't look very nice at all. So I hope that's going to work out. I hope the ledge is going to be able to stay stable as well, because the ground underneath is quite soft, so it could move around. And I hope the ledge doesn't slope so that my rocks fall into the middle of the pond, or I hope it just stays quite settled. Up around the edges, I have the soil banked up around under these rocks, so that is going to inevitably sink a little bit with time. The liner is underneath as well, so that will hold it quite a bit, but it doesn't matter if this sinks a little bit. I have this elevated a little bit more because I'm expecting it to sink a little bit with time, but by that time the plants would have grown around and smothered this edge anyway. And if it does sink and it sinks the liner compared to the rest of the level of the pond, well, then this will become a kind of bog garden area on the side. We'll see what happens with time.